What's up, everybody? Welcome to Heresy Financial. My name is Joe Brown. Over the last couple of years, there's been a subject that has come up many times regarding a secret whale out there who is buying Bitcoin. This has led to some investigation, and many people believe that a stablecoin called Tether is responsible. Essentially, the claim that's being made is that Tether, which is supposed to be fully reserved and fully backed up by US dollars, is not actually backed up by US dollars. They're creating more out of thin air and then using that to buy and accumulate Bitcoin. So we're not going to dive into the nitty-gritty details because personally, I don't think it actually matters. And so today we are going to look at the implications of whether this is true or not. If Tether is actually doing this, does it matter? Ready? Let's dive in. All right, so I'm going to tell you the story of Tether here. Here's essentially what the claim is. There is an entity that is in charge of this currency, and they claim that this currency is fully reserved and backed up by something that has real-world value. But in secret, what they are doing is creating a lot more of these currency units than they're letting people know. And then what they're doing with those newly created units of currency is going out into the marketplace and actually using them to buy something that really does have real world value. And so they're pulling the wool over everybody's eyes because at the same time, they're getting purchasing power from people and claiming that it will be able to be redeemed with an equal amount of purchasing power. But what they are doing with that is turning around and exchanging that for something that has real world value. And when the jig is up and everybody realizes what's happened, everybody who's holding these currency units will be left with no purchasing power, and these guys who had all the control and were doing this in secret will be left with a massive stockpile of wealth. Now I want you to pause, because I did just tell you the story of Tether, but I also told you the story of every fiat currency that has ever existed. Every fiat currency starts out, it's backed by something of real world value. They say, hey, use our paper instead of the gold because it's as good as gold. You can redeem it anytime. We have enough gold to back it all up. But in secret, what they're doing is they're printing a lot more paper than they actually have in reserves. They're using that. Go check any central bank's balance sheets. You can see central banks all around the world are buying stocks, buying bonds, buying gold. All around the world, they're buying real assets and saying, use my paper. I'm going to take the purchasing power and go buy something that has actual value. Look at what they do, not at what they say. Meanwhile, everybody in the world who holds on to fiat currencies, when it's backed by something, and then when it transitions to everybody realizes, hey, it's not actually backed by anything anymore, purchasing power falls off of a cliff if that doesn't actually collapse the currency in that moment. If the currency survives, like the ones that are still existing today have so far survived up to this point, you embark on a path where the purchasing power just declines slowly or sometimes quickly over an extended period of time. And you say, but wait, what about what they're buying with it? Doesn't that mean that Bitcoin is destined to fail if this is what Tether is actually doing? Well, it'd be nice if something like this had happened before and we could take a look at how that turned out. Oh wait, let's take a look at gold. Back in the 90s, central banks weren't buying gold. They were actually selling it. And what this did to the price of gold was obviously drive it down. Central banks are some of the biggest players in the world. They've got the most amount of capital to be moved around. And so this was driving the price of gold down. So much so that many of the central banks got together in 1999 and they said, hey, look, we need to come up with an agreement to only all together on net sell a certain amount of gold every year because quite frankly, there's too much gold hitting the market and it's making our losses, everybody else's losses who still holds that gold, even greater. And so let's all agree to not sell more than a specific amount altogether net. That way it doesn't drive the price down too much. Like I said, that happened in 1999 and look at what subsequently happened to the price of gold. Yep, that was the bottom. Obviously, when the biggest sellers stop selling as much as they were selling before, you're gonna probably see a bottom. Well, over the next 20 years following that, central banks transitioned from being net sellers to net buyers of gold. Well, it got to the point in 2014 where central banks on net were buying so much gold every year and nobody was selling that they just didn't worry about renewing the agreement because it didn't matter. Nobody was selling gold anymore. All the central banks pretty much were just buying gold. So why renew an agreement that says you can only sell a certain amount when everybody wants to buy it? Quite frankly, at that point, everybody wants to buy so much of it that you're saying, hey, I want somebody else to start selling. That way I have somebody to go buy it from without it driving the price up. And here's the key thing to remember about this. Central banks create their money out of thin air and it is backed by nothing. by air, by full faith and trust. It's nothing, it's garbage, it's psychological mumbo jumbo, it's nonsense. And in many countries, the only reason why people still use their government's fiat is simply by decree of law, enforced through a monopoly on violence, of course. Now, I don't see anybody around the world claiming that the fact that central banks are printing fiat money out of thin air, giving it to people, and using that purchasing power to turn around and buy gold. I don't see anybody around the world saying that that is a dynamic that is a death knell for gold. In fact, it's a death knell for the fiat currencies themselves, because the people who are creating them, the central banks, don't even believe in their purchasing power. So I don't know whether this is happening with Tether or not, whether they're creating new currency units out of thin air and then using that to buy Bitcoin. But if they are, that's a death knell for Tether, not for Bitcoin. So in summary, do I think that this is going on? I don't know, and personally, I could care less. Tether is a small fish in a big pond. They're doing nothing new. They're doing nothing unique. They're a cryptocurrency built on top of a layer of fiat currency, which by nature is redundant and useless. And if it seems like a problem to you that they're buying Bitcoin with unbacked units, just wait. Just wait until one central bank around the world announces they've been adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. Because a government can shut Tether down, but if a government decides to start buying Bitcoin, man, all bets are off. And speaking of a government trying to shut down a cryptocurrency, one of the main ways many governments are experimenting with this is just increasing taxes on the cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. And so if you would like to invest in Bitcoin tax-free, great way to do that is with a self-directed IRA. And my favorite is iTrustCapital. It's the easiest, it's the cheapest, and if you use my link in the description below, you get your first month free. As always, I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.